Welcome back to BadgerBlitz TV, your Rivals.com destination for all things Wisconsin athletics. I'm Matt Perkins, joined, as always, by BadgerBlitz.com publisher and editor-in-chief, John McNamara. Good to see you, as always, buddy.
Good to see you too, Matt.
So Badgers coming off of not just a win this week, John, but probably the most dominant performance of the Fickle era, which is really saying something in their Big Ten home opener for the season against Purdue. Now, we all know that Purdue has a bevy of issues with their team. Most notably, well, I don't know, what is the most notable issue with them? Because they seem to be facing a lot of them. But John, I think this is, as you know, in the, 17 games, 18 games of the Luke Fickle era, far and away the most impressive performance, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So let's start there. John, what led to such staggering success for this offense this weekend, in your opinion? If there's like one thing that really made it possible, what was it?
Yeah, I think it's largely the offensive line, and you look at those Pro Football Focus grades, and you can take what you want from those grades, I suppose, but a guy like Jack Nelson grades out in the 90s, which is obviously really strong, and the rest of the group collectively I thought was very good too. Just giving Braden Locke that time to process the field, to look at those reads, and to distribute the football. I thought they did an excellent job there, and obviously in the run game too, you saw obviously Tawee Walker find the end zone twice. They had that more restricted group, like we talked about the last time, where, Walker, then you saw Dupree, which in that number 2 spot, I think was a little bit of surprise, sprinkled in with a little Katie Akamelli. And then Dilin Jones at the end, I think, is enough to get people excited about the future of the position. Gideon Ntuka saw some reps too. So after a win like this, I think there's a lot of things to get excited about, but specifically with the youth and specifically with the offensive line, which I think this group will continue to, rely on as the season moves forward here, because the unit's improved. The running backs are there. I think that's what they're going to lean into as they go to Rutgers and beyond here.
Running backs are definitely there. Dilin Jones, with the big long run that he broke off after breaking a couple tackles, was particularly impressive on the weekend. Like you said, the offensive line looked great. We talked, Bernie and I talked with Craig Urbick about the offensive line a lot last week, and that was a really informative conversation, just sort of going and looking at it through his eyes and see what he's seeing, because, AJ Blazik is really doing impressive things with this line. Really impressive thing, considering that it's not exactly the same group as last year. 3 of the 5 starters are the same from what we saw of the majority of last season. And they do, these guys look better to a man. I mean, it's very, very impressive there. The other thing that I loved seeing was that they kept taking shots downfield. And we've been asking for this for a while. It's going to open, even when you don't get them, most of the time it's going to be an incompletion or a pass interference. And so I'm going to crib something that Sojourn talked about a couple of weeks ago when I was on with him. He said, he's one of the best corners to ever play Wisconsin. He's even college DBs suck. College DBs suck. They can't play the ball in the air. They don't know what they're doing. So you're going to get a pass interference more often than, especially in the NFL. So there's no reason to not throw it up there. And that's what we saw them do multiple times. We saw guys get open and get loose like that. I mean, Tretch was awesome getting loose there. Vinny Anthony had another really good day. And to me, this was actually his statistic thing was 4 catches for 55 yards for CJ Williams or something like that. This was the CJ Williams coming out party, because to me, he showed that he could be a reliable target, especially once we saw Bryson Green go out. Tyrell Henry went out as well. Pauling was limited, obviously. But seeing CJ Williams step up like that was, to me, a really big plus.
Yeah, 51 snaps for CJ Williams, which significant. Obviously, you had guys go down, Bryson Greenwald, Pauling. But, he comes in. I don't want to say this is what Wisconsin fans have been waiting for, but kind of like that. I mean, he was as heralded as a transfer addition as Wisconsin had in that, was that 2023 offseason. Tough to remember the years, but he was a big time high school prospect, goes to USC, a little bit down the depth chart there. I think you saw USC, Wisconsin, and there's a reason why. USC's receivers are really, really good. And if you can get this consistency from him, that's huge. I think the biggest thing maybe in the fall was, catching the football. And if he's able to do that and run consistent routes and be a playmaker, that's a huge, huge addition for this offense. And, going back to Pro Football Focus, he graded out really, really well. 74.7, which was pretty much near the top of that wide receiver group. So that's a big time weapon and someone that Braden Locke can lock into, no pun intended, moving forward here if he can continue that consistency up.
Braden looks really confident. Like, he looks really confident. The most confident, I think. I mean, I thought he looked in the USC game. He showed some confidence. I feel like both these last two games, he's shown more confidence than he did at all last year. In any of the, whatever it was, 4 or 5 games that he started last year. But even after 2 interceptions, he kept, I think Luke Fickell said this in his post game on the field, on the telecast, that he didn't just start checking it down and making, the safe plays. He kept pushing it. And I think that's what really opened this offense, even after he kept making those mistakes.
And to add on to that, looking back and rewatching the game, a lot of second reads, a lot of third options. He's going through those progressions, and you've seen Wisconsin quarterbacks or just cornerbacks in general that they lock in. Okay, I'm going to pass the ball to this guy as soon as they break that huddle. And you saw him make some of those reads, the progressions, and those are all positive things. But again, it goes back to he had a lot of time to process and to get his feet set and to look at those options, scan the field. And that obviously starts with the offensive line. Really good performance there.
Yeah, so much time. The other thing I thought was really interesting, the tight end rotation is crazy different every week. We saw a ton of Riley Nowakowski this week after a couple weeks ago, not seeing him at all, basically. Less for Tucker Ashcraft. Obviously, once we got a blowout going, we saw more JT Seagraves, more Jackson McGowan, really. I think only his second appearance for the year, something like that. So I just think that offensive side of the ball starts to be gelling, coalescing. I thought on the defensive side of the ball, though, John, the linebackers stepped up their play. I thought while the run fits still aren't perfect, the run fits are getting better. Which is, I think a good sign for the defense, just kind of overall. So any thoughts here on the defensive side of the ball, John?
Jaheim Thomas played better. I think that's kind of where it starts for me. Look, he has not had a great start to the season, but he was a guy that Wisconsin really felt good about adding to this unit. And I think you saw some of that on Saturday. He good in the middle. I thought he was reading a little bit better. Gap fits, run fits, whatever you want to call it. Those were better. And then a little bit off the edge too. So I think if you're starting to see what this coaching staff knew that he could provide. I think it kind of looked like things were slowing down for him just a little bit there. So I thought that was probably my biggest takeaway there. A lot of really solid grades too. And look, if you want to talk about the youth, Xavier Lucas right at the top, 28 reps. I think that was with the most cornerback reps. A lot of that goes into that game being in hand in the fourth quarter. But, the more reps that you can give a guy like him, the better. I think he's going to be a starter for you next year, obviously. And then the defensive line, I think quietly had a good game, and that play that Chaney blew up there. Obviously Chaney gets a lot of the credit, but defensive line really pushed that back and caused
Barton
that to
there on that one.
I think it was Barton on that one too. Yeah. So, quietly, I think that defensive line had a really good game too as well. So a lot of positives to take away, tons of really good stuff. I think the naysayers can say it was Purdue. I totally get that. I think Purdue, they might be the worst Power 4 team out there. You think you can make a case? You can certainly make a case.
UCLA's down there too. Let me tell you, as someone who's watched way too much UCLA football this year, UCLA's down there too.
Yeah, and I also look at I like that they are rotating guys, specifically at the inside linebacker spot. You're seeing more Christian Allegro, 19 snaps there. You're seeing more Tackett Curtis there. And then a little bit of Sebastian Cheeks. Obviously, that has to do with Aaron Witt not playing. Yeah. But, I think he provided a little boost there too, 18 snaps. So a lot to like.
He had a sack too, I think.
He did. He did have a sack. Yeah.
He looked like he was playing fast. He was playing really fast, and I thought that was really impressive to see. Let's talk about some of the visitors Wisconsin had for the weekend. Any feedback that you've gotten from any recruits who were up there for the weekend, or anyone? We obviously did a preview last week about who was going to be coming. Do you think anything really jumped off the page there?
Yeah, I think you look at right away the two offers that Wisconsin sent out. The first one was to Claude Mpouma. He's a big tackle from Chicago, and Wisconsin ended up offering him a really raw kid, new to
1 year
football.
of football, right?
Yeah, and I got a chance to talk
It's
to him real
huge.
briefly. Really talked about his relationship with Coach Blazek, the job that he's done in his recruitment. He was a guy that unrated right now by rivals, but he felt like a guy that was probably going to leave with an offer. Obviously, that does happen, and I think Wisconsin's certainly going to be a school to watch for him moving forward. But the kid probably one of the kids I should say is Nick Hankins, the cornerback from Illinois as well. He really seemed to be impressed by the atmosphere, the coaching staff. He mentioned Pat Lambert a lot, talked about Paul Haynes, and he said Wisconsin's one of the most active teams in his recruitment right now. And obviously with that proximity there, that should work in Wisconsin's favor. He talked about getting back up there as soon as he can once that basketball season ends. 6'1", 180 pounds, dual sport athlete. I think all those things that Wisconsin kind of looks for. Then I would go to the offensive line. Sam Simpson, in-state kid, made another visit. Look, he just kind of keeps piling those visits up. There's other schools in the Midwest that are involved for him, but that's when I feel like we'll eventually tip in Wisconsin's favor. And then Ben Novak as well. I'm scheduled to talk to him a little bit later today. He's a kid, like I said, I got a future cast in for. I think he's going to end up at Wisconsin, obviously, because I put that future cast in. We'll see how that kind of plays out here in the next couple of days or so. He may want to take some more visits. I know Louisville's a team that he likes quite a bit as well. So always good to have kids around that environment. Madison was beautiful that day, sunny, good football game. Coaches are happy, recruiting department's happy. So it turns out to be a really good visit weekend for the Badgers.
So in the 2026 class, we talked about previously that they're probably only going to take 3 offensive linemen after back-to-back classes of 5 offensive linemen. What are going to be the positions of real focus? We know running back because it doesn't look like they're going to get a running back here in the 2025 cycle. So besides running back and 3 offensive linemen, what other positions do you think the Badgers are really focusing on here for 26?
I look receiver too as well, right? You have 2 committed in this class, one being a slot guy, Eugene Hilton. I don't really want to put a label on him because I think he could do just about everything for you. But, I think you'd really like to get that true boundary guy in that 26 class. I think that's easier said than done. That's probably a 3, maybe a 4, scholarship guy class at receiver in 2026. I think it's obviously far too early to say that. But, like you talked about with the offensive line, after going 5 in 24, 5 in 25, that group's going to be a little bit more selective. But that's kind of a group I have my eye on because you talk about Simpson, you talk about Novak. They could eat up 2 spots there. You have another in-state kid, James Thomas, who's out there that obviously Wisconsin likes quite a bit. We have an update on Evan Goodwin, big 3-star kid, big 3-star tackle who, look, it's Wisconsin, Oklahoma State. They're showing him the most love. There's a number of other national kids that are out there that feel pretty good about Wisconsin, and obviously the interest is mutual there. So kind of first come, first serve, I think there. You can never really count your eggs before they hatch, I suppose, on the offensive line. But, there's some talented kids. I don't want to say limited spots, but it's not going to be 5, right? So it's not going to be, we got plenty of spots to fill. It's going to be, 3, maybe 4. I would tend to say 4 because they don't want to address this position through the portal. I think they just want to keep plugging in talent and just let it go through the high school ranks. But that's a spot I have my eye on because Blazek has done a really nice job of getting guys on campus and putting Wisconsin in a position to potentially close out them through the recruiting process.
I mean, obviously, I think that you always have to keep an eye on defensive line because defensive linemen are a premium. And at the moment, I mean, Elijah Hills, Kay McDonald's, and Ben Barton are all definitely going to be graduating. We'll see what happens with James Thomas to see if he takes a medical red shirt for the year or just decides to, try to move on to the pros after this year. But I still think that that's a position that they really have to keep plugging away at and keep getting bodies because, we've seen that even when they're at full strength right now, or as close to full strength they can be without Thompson, there's still, I don't want to say a long way to go, but they still definitely have strides that they can make or will need to make along the defensive line. And we know how hard it is to find defensive linemen in the portal.
Yeah, that's why a guy like King Liggins was such a big visitor for them. Offered in June, visit in July. I think this is his third visit. I don't think he's visited previously this fall. So, visit number 3 for him. He'd be a huge piece in this class, right? And like you said, Matt, you want to keep adding bodies to that room, just like you want to do in the offensive line. You feel good about that 2025 class if you can hang on to all of them. I think you can. We'll just kind of see how that unfolds. But 2026, you're looking at another probably 3-person, 4-person class. A guy like King Liggins brings you some versatility. I think you can play inside. You can bump them outside a little bit as well. I don't want to say he's their top option there because they've got a number of guys that they're on. But in terms of mutual interest and where he stacks up on Wisconsin's board, I think he's as high as just about anyone in the 2026 class. We'll see if schools like Michigan pull the trigger, or maybe a school like Notre Dame too. But right now he seems to be kind of in that sweet spot for Wisconsin, not hovering too high, but hovering just enough that his talent's there. So I think he's a very realistic option for them in that 26 cycle.
Yeah, that high 3, low 4-star kind of league. It seems to be where Wisconsin is, at least when it comes to the rivals rankings. That seems to be where Wisconsin's really making their hay right now under the, I guess we can call it the Steinecker, Lambert, Rabach recruiting regime. Speaking of which, so let's head down to the high school level. In Wisconsin, John, anything jump off the page to you from this past weekend? There were a couple big matchups.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, you look at that Classic 8, and we talked about Commonwealth last week, and they go down. So now I believe you have a 3-way tie there. And there's, 2 games left of the season. It's going to be really interesting to see how those, teams kind of – how that conference plays out. There's a lot of really good football teams in that conference, and obviously Oconomowoc going on the road to Mukwonago and losing, it's a tough blow for them, but they're still having an excellent season. Really good players on that roster that I know that a lot of schools are looking at. So really going to be interesting to see how that conference kind of shifts out. And then you look at D1, Franklin's undefeated. It looks like they'll probably secure a 1 seed down in one of those regions, and then Verona. Talked a lot about Trey Poteet last week. They remain undefeated. It looks like they'll position themselves for a potential 1 seed there. Kimberly goes down. Last week, that's a big one because they are no longer undefeated. And the team that beat them was a Grant Dean-led Neenah team. So, Wisconsin recruit coming up with a big victory there last week. So that Division I field, it's loaded. And then, we're not even talking about teams like Marquette, the reigning state champs. I think they have 1 loss right now. Muskego is always a very dangerous football team. I think they're at 2 losses right now. So that D1 field is loaded.
3 losses.
3 losses. Excuse me. Yeah, they lost to Germantown, another Wisconsin Cooper Catalano connection there. So, yeah, I mean, that's not a team I'd want to play in the first or second or third or any round, a team like Muskego.
Well, they'll be taking on Oconomowoc this weekend in what should be another really good matchup, even if the record from Muskego doesn't necessarily indicate it. I think a lot of Wisconsin fans, I think a lot of people around the state are going to have their eye on that matchup this weekend, which is a home game for Oconomowoc after that tough loss that you mentioned last weekend. I think that's probably the marquee game of the weekend in the state. I don't know if you're going to be trying to get out there, but I think that's going to be a really good one. Hamilton is taking on Marquette. We know. I think there's a couple. There was one of the. I think it was Kakana's playing an interesting game this weekend. If I'm not mistaken, I can't remember off the top of my head who they're. Kimberly, Kakana Kimberly this weekend is right. What's on? Anything on your radar? Anything that you're definitely going to try to make it out to see, or at least going to try to get some intel on?
Yeah, if I get the green light, I'd love to see Oconomowoc play. There's a few other guys too as well from inside the state. Now you start to maybe look at kids from Illinois, maybe getting down there to see some Wisconsin targets there from kids from Illinois. But just a couple weeks left for this regular season. It feels like it's flown by, Matt.
It really has flown by. I mean, to be fair, we've been talking about it since August. So, we've been talking about this regular season for almost 2 months now. I'm excited, though. I think it's been a really interesting season to watch from afar. Definitely, just keeping an eye, because, I think there's been a fair few upsets across the state, this year. And it's been just really fun to keep track of. I really like, I try to catch the highlights at least of Verona every weekend, just because I want to watch Trey Poteet. It's really what it boils down to. But it's always fun. High school football is always fun. I don't think, even if it's, low level high school football, there's always such passion and such like devotion and joy that comes out of high school football. So it's always, just really fun to be around and be there. John, we'll get you out of here on this today. Wisconsin travels to Rutgers, a good Rutgers team. Let's face it, this is a good Rutgers team, even coming off of a loss at Nebraska last week. What can we expect? Do you think we see any more wrinkles out of the offense, or any other sort of notable changes that you expect for the Badgers?
I think right away you want to know the health of Will Pauling and Bryson Green. Luke Fickell will be asked about that, probably about an hour, and he will probably not answer it because he'll say that it's too early in the week, which, it is what it is. Truth. Yeah, it probably isn't right. I mean, I do think Pauling hopped back in the game at least for another play. So I guess I would anticipate both those guys to be good to go, but I guess you never really know. I think you try to replicate as much as you did on Saturday and try to bring it over to Rutgers. I think that's easier said than done, but I think they'll continue to try to run that football. Tyree Walker close to 20 carries. I think you'll look to do the same if he's able to do that. Try to get carries to Dupree. Yacomelli's there as well. I think they'll just continue to look to the run game. But look, if your receivers are making plays, try to get the ball in Tretch Kekahuna's hands however you possibly can. I think you kind of saw the Phil Longo version of the jet sweep there, where Locke gets the ball and just little forward dump to Tretch. I think you just got to find ways to get him the football, however that might be. So that's what I'm looking for.
Awesome. Well, John, I appreciate you checking in as always here on BadgerBlitz TV, even as you get put into the dark by the motion sensor cameras or the lights, wherever it is that you are at the moment. You might have to wave your hands around in the air to get these lights back on. I don't know what's going on, but that is probably a good omen for us to wrap up the show here today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into BadgerBlitz TV. Please make sure that you like, subscribe, rate, and review here on YouTube, and that you are subscribing to BadgerBlitz.com for the best Badger information and message boards anywhere in the known universe. Again, like we said, thanks for tuning in. Keep on coming back. Keep giving us your questions in the forums. We love to hear them. So we'll be back next week on BadgerBlitz TV. So until next time, he's John McNamara. I'm Matt Perkins, and we'll see you in the den.